Welcome back. You're still watching Network Africa on Channels Television. Now, unfortunately, but without surprise, the newly signed peace deal has not yielded much fruit, and fighting has resurfaced in various parts of the world's newest country. As usual, the blame game is being played in South Sudan, with the warring factions, with the rebel leader also accusing the government of violating a ceasefire hours after it came into effect. On his part, Riek Machar says the army attacked his forces in 2 northern states, and those are allegations which the military denies. This is the 8th ceasefire put in place to try to end the brutal 20-month conflict. Now, indeed, there are some obstacles to the peace being restored in South Sudan, and we've taken a look at this on Network Africa, and we've come up with 5 so far. The first is the 2 main rivals involved in this conflict. Mr. Machar arguably has more to gain from the agreement, as he will become the first vice president, and his movement will get political posts, and his troops will become integrated into the army. Mr. Kiir has made it very clear that he dislikes the deal, and his animosity with Mr. Machar is well known too. Now, in terms of the deal, President Kiir expressed his dissatisfaction with it, including some of the power sharing and security components. Many of his key supporters, including ethnic Dinka elders and powerful generals, had advised him not to sign it. They say it's a foreign-backed attempt to weaken President Kiir and the country. Now, regarding South Sudan's neighbors, over the past 18 months, South Sudan's neighbors have taken a leading role in mediating between the warring parties. And rumor has it that Uganda intervened militarily in support of President Kiir, to the frustration of the rebels. And Sudan is allegedly providing logistics, weapons and bases to Mr. Machar's army. Unity on both sides is also an obstacle. Mr. Machar's rebel group was always an uneasy collision of civilian militias and military units that defected from the National Army, SPLA. And finally, the deepening ethnic animosity is also an obstacle to the peace deal here, as millions of South Sudanese have known hardly anything but war. At the time of the United Sudan, the first North-South Civil War lasted from 1955 to 1971, and the second was even longer. That was from 1983 to 2005. After South Sudan's independence in 2011, it wasn't long before the new civil conflict erupted in December of 2013. Well, we're joined from London by African news analyst Mr. Warwick Oyama. He joins us from London. Mr. Oyama, thank you very much for joining us again on Network Africa.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Now, are you surprised at all that this 8th peace deal, or power sharing deal as some call it, has collapsed the way it did?
Absolutely not. Apart from anything else, the President Salva Kiir indicated from the very beginning that he wasn't happy with the agreement and didn't want to sign it. As you rightly indicated in your introduction to this subject, a lot of people were telling him, don't sign it. This is a foreign trick to get you out of power. And that really has been his posture. He only signed the agreement under the threat of sanctions from the United Nations. So he was a reluctant contributory to the peace process from the very beginning.
Oh, Mr. Oyama, is a foreign intervention the way out? Because that doesn't appear to be the case. I mean, we've seen this deal collapse. This is the 8th time, and sanctions have been, South Sudan has been threatened with sanctions in most of those cases. So is a foreign intervention the way out?
Well, I think you can take it that if there isn't any foreign intervention, they will fight this out to the last man. The last man standing will be the winner. And I think that will mean further bloodshed and further population displacement as people flee a more intense conflict. It may well be that the natural outcome will have to be the last man standing of the 2 contending parties.
Just before I let you go, Mr. Oyama, now that we've seen, based on what you say and what we've seen clearly, is the international efforts that have helped to douse the tension or contain it to some extent. But what do you reckon might be the way forward now that international efforts appear not to be giving us much of the anticipated solution?
Well, if by way forward you mean a means of achieving a peaceful agreement that will be honored by both parties, it's very difficult to see a way forward. I must be quite honest with you. Salva Kiir has been very suspicious of any opposition from the very word go. At least 10 potentially opposition politicians have been locked up by him, and to some extent Machar was forced into exile to flee for his life as a result of what might be described as Salva Kiir, the president's intense paranoia about the intentions of the people around him to displace him from power.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see what happens then. Mr. Onyema, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you very much for joining us on Network Africa.
It looks like being another African story. Thank you, Cynthia.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Mr. Riek Machar, speaking to us from London. He's an Africa news analyst. Well, to other matters now, it's no longer a cause for speculation, as the Kenyan government has confirmed that the head of the Roman Catholic Church, Pope Francis, will make Kenya the first stop of his maiden tour of Africa this November. According to State House, the seat of government in Nairobi, the Pope will also visit Uganda and the Central African Republic during his tour. The visit would be the second high-profile one for the East African country, just a few months after President Barack Obama paid a visit to Kenya based on security. Now, why exactly is Pope Francis heading to Kenya? Well, there are three reasons, even though they're all interwoven. It's first of all to promote national healing. The Pope's visit would serve to promote peace and reconciliation in Kenya, which has recently been rocked by a series of terrorist attacks carried out by Somalia's Al-Shabaab militant group. The second purpose is dialogue. Kenya is optimistic that November's papal visit would serve the cause of interfaith understanding. That's because Kenya has witnessed attacks on Christians in recent years by those who profess to be Muslims. And also the third reason is peaceful coexistence. Kenya is also hopeful that during the Pope's visit, the head of the Vatican would promote religious freedom and also champion the protection of religious minorities. For more on this and highly anticipated visit to some extent, we go live to Nairobi, where the programs manager for the Kenya Christian Professionals Forum, Ann Kioko, is standing by. Ann, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, Cynthia, thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure as always. I have to ask, how are Kenyans preparing for this visit?
Well, what I must say is that very much anticipated visit of the Pope. We know that he's a top church leader in the world, and besides the Catholic, even the other denominations also see him as a top church leader. And here in Kenya, the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops, who are our partners, they have already started meetings where they are planning on how to receive the Pope. And though they have not received an official letter confirming that he is coming, he had indicated so that he's coming via a word of mouth, but a letter has not yet. Plans are underway and everybody is excited. As a Kenya Christian Professionals Forum, we are partnering with the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops so that we can unite the whole church so we can receive the Pope. Like you said rightfully, Kenya has been exposed to terrorism, religious extremism and that kind of stuff, and we feel he's coming, going to unite religions across the board, and we really are happy about his coming.
Now, I know that the church is excited, and I say church also in terms of the Catholics and also the Kenya Christian Professionals Forum and on that group, basically. But what we understand, what analysts are saying, is that the average Kenyan isn't too bothered about this trip. Is that valid?
Well, like I said before, the plans about his coming underwater, they are just underwater. They have not yet started coming up, but there's a very powerful committee already sitting, and very soon we are going to engage. They are going to engage even the states, even all people across the board. So, yeah, at the moment it may seem like there's nothing happening, but it is untrue. The truth is that there's a committee sitting, and already there are plans undergoing. It's only that we have not come out in the media and publicizing the whole thing. But maybe as we go on, end of September, in October, people will see advanced, preparations and
yes,
actually a hype-up of the whole visit.
Well, thank you so much, Anne Kyoko. We appreciate your time as always. Thank you very much for the update. We appreciate you. Thank you. The programs manager for the Kenya Christian Professionals Forum, Anne Kyoko, reporting from Nairobi. And on that note, here is our question of the day. We're simply asking what you think could be the way forward for the crisis in South Sudan now that the 8th peace deal has collapsed. Feel free to send us your feedback either via email or Twitter. The address and handle are right there on your screen. As always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for watching Network Africa right here on Channels Television. I'm Cynthia Are.